I think we're good.
Yes.
Go for it.
Well, hi everyone. Thank you for joining our stream. I'm not your usual face, but obviously beside me is Rick. My name is Zach, and today, as you can see, we're joined by John DeLancey, who's actually live from Israel. We mentioned last week that he was going to join us. I believe you were in Luxor, correct? I think that's when we
last week I
spoke.
was in the airport of Cairo, I think. Yeah.
Cairo, yeah. So this week you're actually in Israel. It's the first time since October 7th, which is huge for us. We had mentioned last week that you were our first group back. You have a group of almost 30 people that were going, and you've been posting on Facebook all week, and it seems like you're having a great trip.
It has been a great trip so far, wonderful in every respect. You know, the organization and the trip planning by Imagine and all of our land agents has really gone perfectly well. So yes, this is our 5th day of the Israel portion of our trip. And as you know, we started in Egypt, did Cairo a day, Luxor a couple of days, flew to Amman, did Jordan for 2 days, and then crossed into Israel at the southern end of the Red Sea. So we are now in our 3rd and final night in the Sea of Galilee area, Tiberias, and we head to Jerusalem tomorrow. But really, the trip has gone well for everyone.
That's great. Well, you're in the Galilee. You've spent 2 nights there so far. This is your 2nd night?
This is our 3rd night. We had to adjust. We had to adjust our program yesterday, but we did really well. We, of course, stayed clear of the northern border just because of some safety concerns. But really, Rick, I'll tell you that no one's looking over their shoulder, over their back. No issues at all. Really, really greeted well by really both Israelis and Palestinians. Like for instance, in Jericho yesterday, we had just a welcoming crowd, if you will. People were pleased that they actually saw a group there, and they even held the site of Jericho open for us to get there. So
that's incredible.
It has been incredible, and now in the north here, we're in a nice hotel with actually people who have been evacuated from the north. So it's really good blend of, we're the only group, but with locals who are just adjusting to the situation. We're meeting kids and moms, and they're all thankful that we're here. So I think our presence is really in support of them. They are telling us that. So that's a really neat, surprising.
Can you highlight again a little bit about just safety, just for those that are just getting on now and hearing you for the first time?
Yeah, well, safety, of course, has been an issue for people who have been considering on a trip to join us for whether it be Israel or other biblical lands. But really, safety has not been any issue. Unless you turn on your news, you would never have heard, or you would never know that this country is facing some challenges, of course, up north and Gaza. But we've been really welcomed warmly by everyone, especially those here up in the north. And in 5 days so far, again, really free travel. We go everywhere. And great sites, biblical connections. So it's really been a positive experience for everyone.
And if I asked you, what's the closest that you've been to Gaza so far on your trip for the 5 days that you've been in Israel?
We have been, probably the closest would be 80 miles, maybe 70 miles. We certainly,
so quite a distance.
The country from the south, so it's a far distant distance away from where we have been. And now here in Tiberias, the border with Lebanon has been a challenge as well, but we're 30 miles, 35 miles depending on the border from here. So that's not an issue as well. But again, great time, no looking over our shoulder, and really, other than seeing some jets fly north yesterday, and
Okay.
hearing
That's
just
not unusual, though. We see that a lot.
yeah, well, that happens in any country, but it's been very safe and worry-free, if you will, and that's what we anticipate actually when we go to Jerusalem tomorrow. In fact, when we arrive, I'll be walking the group to the Western Wall, as we typically do our first night of all of our trips, and that'll be a
That's one
great
of the highlights.
experience as well.
Can I ask you, what are some of the sites that you've been able to include in the Galilee that you might not have been able to have seen on a normal tour due to time, but because you weren't able to go all the way up as far north as you normally do, what were you able to include instead or as an alternative?
Yeah, it's a great question. We were aiming to go up to the north, Dan, Caesarea Philippi, the Hermon, Mount Hermon area, even looking into Syria, but we substituted Hippos, which we typically do anyway, Gamla, which again is part of our itinerary once in a while, and Katsrin, which is always a part of our program. That's actually about 6 miles east of the northern tip of the Sea of Galilee and a little further north, but no problems there. And then we added a very unique site called Khirbet Cana, the real biblical Cana that links us to John 2 and John 4. And people love that site. It requires some walking through, I guess, the fields, if you will. But to think that that's where Jesus changed the water into wine is really a remarkable thought.
And I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I apologize, but can you share a little bit about, a lot of people hear hippos, they don't know what that is. Can you share a little bit about some of the sites like Katrine and so forth that you were talking about, Gamla, just so people understand what these sites are?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Let's start at Katsrin, the furthest north site that we went. It's from the Talmudic period, which is 3rd through 7th century AD. But we go there because there's a great restored stone house that must have looked like that as well back into the days of Jesus. So we go there and enjoy sitting in a house and reading Mark 2. Gamla was a 1st century BC Jewish site. It was a site that was actually taken by the Romans in the first revolt in 67 AD, but there's a 1st century synagogue there. So it requires about a 15 or 20 minute walk down a trail to go there. But just think of there's only 7 or 8 1st century synagogues that have been discovered archaeologically. So when we read Matthew 4 and 9, we're talking about Jesus going into these synagogues and teaching about the kingdom. So to sit in one of these synagogues like Gamla is really quite a neat experience. And then finally, Hippos, or Sosita, is actually one of the Decapolis cities. The Decapolis was a grouping of 10 cities, 9 on the eastern side and Jordan on the western side of the Jordan River. That would be Beit Shan. But to read Mark 5 in the story of Jesus and the transformation of the demoniac is where we read that story. It's a late Roman site, although it was, of course, there in the days of Jesus. In fact, we think that was the city on the hill that Jesus referred to. It's on the other side of the lake, on the southeast corner, but a great archaeological site, actually a rather new national park. So we visited that place, and the view of the lake or the Sea of Galilee from the east is really spectacular.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I believe Zach has another question for you. Go for it.
Oh, okay. So obviously, I think a lot of the people are obviously still wondering, so what are some of the sites that you still get to visit? Obviously, there's the sites that we can't visit, which are the ones that are the farthest north. So your Tel Dans, your Caesarea Philippi.
Right.
Out of the remainders, what are some of the sites that you're still visiting? I know today you mentioned that the itinerary changed a little bit, but from what I have here, you were supposed to visit Magdala and Capernaum, the Mount of Beatitudes. Were those still things that you were able to visit without an issue? Or, did those have any issues? People are always asking, are those impacted as well?
Yeah, most of our sites are intact. For instance, when we crossed into Israel, the typical 3 sites in the desert would be Masada and Gedi Qumran. Again, no one is here. We are really the only, I think, American group so far. We've seen a couple Asian groups, a couple European groups, but those are sites that we can still visit. Even Jericho, no problem there. And then Shiloh, even in the heart of the hills of Samaria. Shiloh, no problem.
That's incredible.
Yeah, really, it really was, and people loved that. That's, of course, where the tabernacle stood for over 300 years until it was destroyed by the Philistines. That'd be 1 Samuel 4. But then Beit Shan, Mount Gilboa, 1 Samuel
Okay.
31. So, and then here today, that's a good question, Zach. We did an optional baptism in the Jordan River, South End. And then we did Magdala, and what else? Capernaum and Arbel in between the raindrops, and then the Bethlehem. So it was a great day.
Right? Is this the time of year when you're praying for rain?
What's that again?
Is this the time of year when you pray for rain?
Oh, absolutely. March is typically transitional. And I apologize, I didn't hear you. There's maybe a delay with the connection, but Israelis love rain. In fact, after really mid-April, there's really no chance of rain until the early or late fall, depending if the early or later rains come. So rain is a welcome sight.
Well, here. I know that usually March, April.
Yeah. March is typically transitional, like I said, and but this is our really first rain event the whole trip, so it hasn't affected us.
Excellent. So when you go to Jerusalem tomorrow and you'll do the Western Wall and so forth, you have plans to also visit Bethlehem?
We will. Like tomorrow's program will be, as we travel south, we'll do the Precipice of Nazareth. We'll do Megiddo, a really big Old Testament site, Mount Carmel and Caesarea on the coast, pronounced also Caesarea. Sorry about the Hebrew. And then to Jerusalem. Then the following day, it'll be really a typical standard program that I do, Mount of Olives to start with. And then we head south to Bethlehem, Herodium, and the Shepherd's Field. So all of this is in Palestinian areas or territories. And again, that afternoon, there should not be a concern at all. I'm sure we'll be welcomed by our good friends at Nissan Brothers, a place where we love to go to buy olive wood and other items that are really indigenous, if you will, to the area. So I think nothing really will change in our program once we get to Jerusalem.
Okay.
Can I ask you, if people want to follow you on your Facebook page or go to your website, what's the best way for them to follow you, John?
Yeah, well, our website for our ministry, incidentally, I am the founder and director of Biblical Israel Ministries and Tours. And of course, we partner for a long time with you, Rick. You guys are really the very best in organizing trips for our ministry, and of course, many, many others. BiblicalIsraelTours.com is the website for our ministry. So anyone who's interested in learning more about who we are, we basically teach the Bible in context. We lead and offer 7 or 8 trips a year, Israel, and usually one Greece trip a year that I lead, though this year will be 2. But that's a good starting point to find out and discover, who we are as a ministry. But yeah, you can anyone really can friend me on Facebook. We have about 28,000 subscribers on YouTube. So when we post teachings, that's another way to connect with what we can offer as a ministry. So again, YouTube, just search for my name, John DeLancey, and you'll find us. We publish there all of our teaching material.
Now, can I ask you, your next return trip to Israel, are you traveling in May or June?
Yeah, in May and June, actually. May is combined with Greece, and June has an optional dig at Shiloh before the June trip. And then I think what's next? September is Israel and Jordan. October is Greece and Turkey and Rome, although I think that may be full at this point. And then November is, again, Israel and Jordan. So a full itinerary. And again, it's so good to be back here, feeling welcomed by really everyone, and to, again, resume our trips in our ministry.
Now, if I understand correctly, your May trip is already full. Yeah, that one's closed out because it's just around the corner. But I believe you still have some space for your June trip, correct? If somebody wanted to go with you still for June to Israel?
Yeah, I believe so. Basically, it's you guys who determined that cutoff date. But I think really when people learn that Israel is safe, people are now resuming their travel. We are maybe some of the first groups to come back, but I think this will change over the next few weeks and even a few months. So by June, I think our regular program should be intact, and certainly people are welcome to join us for this trip. In fact, the June group is small at this point. Sometimes I do get 2 buses, but a small 1-bus experience would be optimal. So certainly I invite people to hop on the June trip if it works in your schedule.
Perfect. It's not too late, so we can do it. We may have to look at the flights a little differently because we don't have group space anymore, but we can definitely get them on as a land only. And if somebody needs help with flights, we can do that as well.
And I think we've lost our light.
I saw that. Wow.
Sorry about that.
There we go. Yeah, no problem. Well, technology is amazing, and we're talking, 6,000 miles away, and you're clear as a whistle. But again, I want to thank you two, your whole team, Rick. Imagine is the best. Been with you guys for a long time, and even go back to the days of your father. I think that's over 30 years ago, which unfortunately dates me, but that's okay.
And it's dating me now.
Look forward to,
you're talking 3 generations.
Yeah,
my father, my son Zach, and myself. So it's truly a blessing. If you had to guess, and I don't know if anybody's ever asked you, how many people would you say that you've taken to Israel over the years?
Oh, my word. That's so hard to tell. I know you keep some statistics. Pre-COVID, I think we were doing, what was it? Was it 500, 600 a year? Maybe more,
Easily.
I don't know. But
Correct.
over years, it's hard to tell. Probably many thousands, and that's really humbling from my perspective because, as a pastor and now doing this full-time as a full-time ministry, it's just so gratifying and really humbling in terms of on every single trip, people, they're not only only their understanding of God's word is transformed, but their walk of faith is inspired in ways I really can't explain. And to see that, to be a part of what God does in people's lives, it's really a fantastic thing to witness. Every trip I lead. So I think I have a pretty great ministry format, if you will. Privileged to see God work in so many ways.
You had mentioned in regards to baptisms, how many people actually got baptized today?
Oh, there's only 4, which is a lower number percentage-wise out of 30. But
Okay.
it was a little chilly. We had these 2 sisters from Georgia, and actually a pastor and his wife from Illinois.
Wonderful.
And
Wow.
it was powerful, especially for these young girls who are they're really enthusiastic about their faith. In fact, I would invite you guys to check out my Facebook page, and even you guys did, Rick, as well. Um, the interview that I did not today but yesterday with these 2 girls, they're really a hoot and just wonderful believers who are in love with Jesus and share
It's
really about their perspective of not only their trip so far but safety as well. So a great update by them.
That's incredible. And last question, well, maybe not the last question, but one of the last questions.
From you at least.
Tell us a little bit about your recent book about connecting the dots.
Well, that was a COVID book. I had some time. I had 16 trips that were unfortunately canceled. But that book serves as our second book that I wrote to focus on the stories of the Bible. The first book is more sight oriented, and this one is biblical story oriented. So what I try to do and pursue is to take the biblical story. There's 50 of them, 25 from the old, 25 from the new, and I blended the archaeological, historical, geographical, cultural background behind the scenes of the story, and then apply that with a life application and a devotional thought. So it's a rather detailed book, but it's, I think, sort of a commentary, a running commentary, but with context built into what I wrote about each of the stories. So that's book's available through our ministry on our store page, but you can also buy a Kindle version of it, on Amazon. It's always there as well.
So we have a question that just came up. I think it's from Roger. The question was asked, are you a guide, or do you have a guide that
Is with you
on these trips? And
Great
how does that
question.
work?
Yeah, well, by law, I have to have an Israeli licensed guide. I can't guide on my own, but I do probably, I don't know, up to 75% of guiding myself. We teach a lot on the bus. I've been with my guide for over 50 trips, and what a great asset he is as well. So we sort of complement each other. So he does guide, takes care of some of the logistical things where I could focus on teaching not only in the bus. I project things on the screen, but at the site, we can walk together and talk and make all these biblical connections together. So we work hand in hand. That's sort of how it works here in Israel, as well as in the other countries I lead trips: Jordan, Egypt, Greece, and Turkey, and of course Italy, with Rome being the focus.
Well, and this is just a plug for Shlomo, but how many years has Shlomo been guiding for you?
Oh, we lost track of that as well. It's over 10 or 12, I think. Previously I used other guides, but we know each other well. In fact, I know exactly what he's going to say at each site, but we're complimenting each other. So I can say, Shlomo, I got this site, and he's fine with that, and we can teach again about the site, historical, archaeological backgrounds to the biblical text, and it's great working with him.
That's perfect.
That's great.
And you also have a couple of great drivers. One of them's with you on this trip. Is that David?
Yeah, David Elimelech is our driver. Again, about 50 times we've been together. He's just such a good friend. David has been driving reservists actually up and down from the north to the south. That's what his job has been during this tough time that Israel has faced. But he's glad to be back with us, and he's always my go-to driver. So we're always in good hands. You should have seen him drive through Cana or to Cana yesterday. Just remarkable how he can maneuver that big bus in tiny, tight places. It's just really remarkable.
Well, I've been privileged to know David and Shlomo for many years, and I can tell you from a professional standpoint, they're probably some of the best in the business, but even more so as individuals, they're just quality, incredible hearts, great people. They always look after the groups, and not only are they well educated and they know their stuff, they're incredible, but beyond that, just as people, human beings, they're amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well,
So
all of your guides that you schedule for all your groups and pastors, they're all A+ tour guides, and that really, I think, is a thing that sets Imagine apart. You have those connections, you have the experienced people, and that makes a big difference for people who travel, through Imagine on a biblical tour to Israel.
well, we're incredibly blessed and fortunate, to say the least. And we've got, like you said, it's all partners and our partners in Israel as well that look out for us. They do an incredible job. I know that it's getting late there for you, but I have a question to ask. And you haven't asked me to do this. I'm doing this on my own. If there are other churches or pastors or other ministries that would love to have you come and speak, I know that you do some seminars. Can you take 2 minutes and tell us how does that work, and do they host you, and how does that, is it like a 2-day event? Is it a 1-day event? How many hours? What do they prepare? What does that look like? Because I know that that's a big part of your ministry, besides leading and doing these trips, which is phenomenal. But I also know that you speak at a lot of churches.
Yeah, I do. I do travel domestically a lot when I'm not here. And what we call bringing the Bible to life seminars, they are about 7.5 hours of teaching. Typically, most churches who host one of these, they schedule 2.5 hours on Friday night and then about 5 on Saturday. Then pretty much all the time I am available to preach and teach on Sunday morning, and most pastors take advantage of that. I share what I call a pictorial message, and really these are our way as a ministry to bring Israel to churches, especially to people who may not be ever able to travel to Israel, whether it be physical challenges or financial reasons. But it's really our way to bring biblical Israel. It's not meant to be a promotion, but we teach. In fact, these are the sessions: physical settings of the Bible.
Okay.
Is
there a certain number
geography
that makes it worthwhile?
And I hear an echo. I'm sorry. So I hope you can overhear.
You're fine. Just keep going. You're great.
Okay, good. Good. So, sorry about that. Archaeology session, and then a background of Jesus, and then customs and culture session. So, all of this is really meant to bring biblical Israel to church. And really, if you want to invite me for a weekend, I'd be very happy to try to find a weekend for you. There's really no cost, no speaking fee. Our ministry sort of got rid of that, and all that the church is responsible for doing is to pay my airfare or travel. And I usually enjoy being put up, or I stay in a member's house, if you will. so I don't need a hotel, and then a free will offering for our ministry. So that's basically it in terms of the cost of having me. But I'd love to speak to anyone, really, a pastor or a church leader, about what would be involved to schedule one of our BBL seminars for your congregation.
And they can contact you through your website, correct?
They can, or simply, email me at drjohn@biblicalisraeltours.com, or text me. Really, I can be found through the website or through social media as well.
And if anybody wants, they can contact us here at ittworld.com and email us or phone us, and we'll get the information and pass it on to you as well, which we've had many a times. People are asking, how do I get in touch with you? So that's fantastic.
Good.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, again, it's been a great trip. I think this was really the start of the resumption of trips. I'm hopeful that this challenge that Israel is facing now will be taken care of. They are doing what they need to do for their own safety of people. But again, the personal connections that we've made already, not just in Egypt and Jordan, where they, of course, are experiencing low tourism as well at this time. But here in Israel, there's such an affinity for the land, for Israel, Israelis themselves. We have a lot of friends here, and it's good to reconnect with them and support them the best we can. So I think our presence here is really encouraging to them, and we are a good start to resuming trips for ministry tours as well.
That's wonderful. So just, I know another question just came in. We were asked by, I believe, Juan, who was asking, when is travel resuming? And just wanted to see if you wanted to touch on that as well. Israel's opened up again. Tourism is allowed?
Tourism is indeed allowed. I mean, we're here, and with no safety concerns as well. I think it's just a matter of time for people to maybe familiar with traveling to Israel, just because the media is always so negative and what's the word? Not maybe superficial, but exaggerate. Really, other than in Gaza, in that area, and up north, I tell you the truth, everything else is pretty back to normal. And that's what we've experienced so far, and that's what I anticipate even going to Jerusalem.
That's awesome. Thank you. Do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, so we have a few comments, actually. I think there was one above from Brandon earlier. I think we'd skipped over it on accident.
That's my bad.
So it looks like Brandon Snipe said, when we were talking about Hippos, we're planning to go to Hippos and possibly Kersey when we go a little bit over in a week. So we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, no problems going to Hippos. That's in the southern Golan. Kersey's on the northeast side of the lake. Again, anything around the Sea of Galilee is perfectly fine, other than really hearing some jets fly north. We heard a couple what I call boom booms, but again, that's way north in Lebanon, and that's just life. We even hear that on past trips, just military maneuvers, but it doesn't really affect us at all. So if you're scheduled to go, a week, you'll be fine in those sites.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a lot of it's the F-16s that are flying over. And so with the, what is it? The sonic
boom.
The sonic boom that you hear, that's a lot of times, that's what the sound is itself. It's not even, the first time I ever heard it, I thought there was something going on that I had to be concerned about. And it was just the F-16s breaking the sound barrier. So yeah, that happens quite a bit. I noticed that even at times when they're practicing and doing things over the Dead Sea, They would splash
Yeah.
up along the Dead Sea just to get the water going and so forth.
They have a contest to see how low they can go.
Yep.
So
Pretty amazing. Is there any other questions?
it looked like Terry said hi. And then Terry asked about the Pool of Siloam. So that's something that I think you're doing later this week, right?
We are. That's in the southern end of the city of David. And we'll be visiting that site. As you know, the person who wrote it last year is when they were able to at least try to open up the rest of the area to try to find the rest of the pool. I'm not sure if they will be successful in that, but it's a great place to, as we walk through Hezekiah's tunnel, it sort of leads right directly to the Pool of Siloam, where we read John 9, really in a dramatic way. We see the steps, we hear the story, and that's a great example of how stories in the Bible can come to life when you're actually reading them where they took place. So it doesn't get any better than that.
Absolutely. I think our next thing, funny enough, is from John Nissan, who we talked about earlier. It was just him saying, blessings to everyone. I know that they're really excited to see you and your group in the next day or two. So, I'm sure the feeling's mutual on your end.
Yeah, absolutely. John and Chris Saliba, they're great friends. And let's just say I brought some M&Ms for you. I just ruined the surprise, but I know what you like, so I brought some for you. Your dear friends there at Bethlehem, and we want to support you the best we can.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I didn't eat any M&Ms yet, so you got the whole bag intact. So no worries.
Hey, that's good news for him. Not for you. And then we have a message from Cass. He's the jeweler.
Yep. He was just saying, welcome to the Holy Land.
Yep. So
that's good. Yeah.
We had another one from
good to be reacquainted.
From Vicky Shearer saying, happy to hear that Shiloh is open. And it's one of her favorite places on the tour. So that's great to hear as well. We always worry about Shiloh and conditions permitting and so forth under normal conditions. So the fact that you're there in Israel now and that you were able to go without any hesitation, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the route that we took is from Jericho area through the Wadi Kalt, through the desert of Parat, up to Shiloh, and then through the hill country and deserts of Samaria. And then that was the way we always take to Beit Shan. And again, some of those roads are just so beautiful with great scenery, but Shiloh was wide open. In fact, I'm looking forward to digging there and helping out with the excavation this coming June.
Excellent.
I think
we've covered
all of them.
Perfect. Well, John, it's been a treat and a pleasure to have you with us. We really thank you for taking the time. I know it's late there, but we're grateful. And please give our best to your group.
Well, you're welcome.
And enjoy the rest of your time in Jerusalem and safe travels home as well.
Okay, yeah, we fly home Saturday night late into Sunday, and again, I'll be happy to give you a total trip wrap up. In fact, on our website, maybe this would be of interest to your folks. What I do for every tour is I update every night a summary of what we saw with hyperlinks to sites, to biblical connections, to sample pictures, to 360 photos, to group pictures. And right now we're updated through day 12. So if you look on our upcoming tours page of our website, again, biblicalisraeltours.com, just look for this March trip and simply follow us the rest of the way until we complete our trip this weekend.
Sounds wonderful.
Perfect.
So to put you on the spot, I know you don't have your calendar with you, but when you have a chance, will you let us know if next week on Tuesday, we might be able to schedule you to do a recap of your entire trip? Because this is the Granddaddy Tour, the 17-day.
Yeah, that should be possible.
Okay.
And I think our listeners may be interested to know that this exact trip that I scheduled will be offered 2 times next year, February and November. So any of you are interested in Egypt, Jordan, Israel, 17-day Granddaddy trip, you're welcome to join.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you, John, for everything.
You're welcome. And thank you. We'll be in touch then.
Sounds wonderful. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you very